There are secrets that time forgets, objects that carry within them not just dust, but entire souls. He bought a dress for a woman he would never see again and hid inside the bag a piece of his soul, a secret of paper and ink that breathed for 4 decades in the dark, waiting. This is the silent power of a forgiveness that arrived 40 years too late. Dona Maria's thrift store was a place forgotten by time, a sanctuary of past lives. The air was heavy, wood smelling of aged, and stories never told. Among abandoned knitting and broken vases, that yellowed linen dress was just another piece, seemingly ordinary, but it held within its perfect seams much more than fabric. He kept a broken promise, a love that had no end, had a break, and a goodbye that was never said. Dona Maria's thrift store wasn't just a warehouse for old things. It was a graveyard of feelings, a silent, dusty place that smelled of mothballs and that whispered of untold stories, trunks from inside women's handbags with rusty clasps. It was an intimate museum of entire lives reduced to sticker prices. And there, among knitting that would never be finished and broken vases that no one would bother to glue, that dress seemed to be just another one, just an object from a distant and forgotten past. But appearances are always deceiving, because that wasn't just any piece of fabric. It was a time capsule. It held in its purpose not only a promise of love, but the echo of an entire dream, and the silent weight of a goodbye that was never said. Imagine them. He was young, with that look full of certainty that the world was at his feet. She, a dreamer, who saw the future not as an unknown, but as a promise to be unwrapped day after day. Together they had an entire future ahead of them, a perfect script they had already written in their minds. But life has its own plans. And then, life decided to write a different chapter. One of those chapters that arrives without warning, that rips the page out of the perfect script and throws it to the wind. What could have happened? An argument? A secret? A simple moment of pride that changed everything forever? What could this dress have witnessed? And what could it still hide? Right there, deep in that pocket, waiting for the touch of someone who hasn't given up on believing that even the saddest endings can hold a new beginning. Sometimes it doesn't take a great tragedy to destroy a love. All it takes is a foolish argument, the kind that arises from exhaustion and grows with stubbornness. Words that are too harsh, sharp as shards of glass, spoken in the rush of a cold night. And then pride, that bitter, proud feeling that whispers in your ear, don't give in, don't go back. And he spoke louder. He left. She stayed and waited. She waited for the sound of the car, the footsteps in the hallway, the ringing of the days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months. The silence between them was no longer just a lack of words. It was a heavy presence, an unbridgeable abyss that had swallowed love, trust, the future. 2 wounded prides, separated by a void that seemed impossible to cross. What she didn't know, what she could never have imagined in the solitude of that wait, was that he had bought that dress the very next day, a gift chosen with care. It wasn't just a piece of fabric. It was a flag, a silent and perfect apology, a gesture of peace, a note of surrender written in the universal language of love. He left the store with a smile, his heart light, forgiveness nestled inside that paper bag. Fate, however, is a cruel and merciless writer. at the wrong turn at the wrong time, under a rain that washed away everything but the pain. An accident, and that apology, that gesture of love that was inches away, was never delivered. The dress, with its note, its secret still hidden, was collected with the rest of her belongings and disappeared into the world. Gone, but not forever, because some stories, some loves, are too big to end in silence. And the next chapter is where the impossible happens. 4 decades passed, 40 years of dust settling on that secret. And then on an ordinary day, like any other chance or something much stronger, placed Julia on the sidewalk in front of Dona Maria's thrift store. Work of routine, she was feeling that life was just a succession of identical days. She entered the store without expectation, almost by inertia, but then her eyes wandered and stopped. Something pulled her gaze. A magnetic, inexplicable attraction. It was the dress. And in that moment, the world around her simply blurred. Have you ever felt that? That strange feeling of déjà vu? That you've been somewhere you've never been or met someone you've never seen? What Julia felt. A familiarity that came not from memory, but from a deeper place. From the blood, from the heart. It was a connection that defied all logic. She didn't buy a dress. She rescued a part of herself she didn't even know was lost. And when she got home in the solitude of her room, the ritual began. She ran her hand over the fabric, feeling every thread, every seam, like an archaeologist touching a sacred relic. And then his fingers exploring the softness of the linen, something rough, unexpected, hidden deep in the pocket, a small obstacle against the smoothness of the fabric. A piece of paper folded and refolded decades ago, waiting for this exact touch. Her heart raced, a sense of foreboding filled the air. With a reverence that history itself demanded, she unfolded that piece of paper, a time capsule containing the fate of 2 souls. And the first words, written in elegant, hurried handwriting, emerged to change her life forever. The paper was fragile, yellowed with age, but the words seemed to have been written only a moment ago. The ink, once a deep blue, was now a pale sepia, but the intensity of feeling spilled from every curve, from every stroke of that elegant, resolute handwriting. Pride is the greatest prison a man can build. I was wrong. I love you. Please let me go home. She read it and reread it, once, twice, 10 times. The words didn't just enter her eyes, but straight into her soul, awakening a dormant memory, an echo of a story she'd heard whispered at funerals and family gatherings but never truly understood. At that very moment, you, I, any of us, would do the same thing. Our minds would refuse to believe the coincidence. Eduardo, a common name perhaps, but the date, the palpable pain in those lines. The most primitive instinct screams at us that there is no chance, there is destiny. His heart was beating like a drum inside his chest, a dull, accelerated sound that drowned out everything around him. There they were, photographs that smelled of nostalgia and of time standing still, images of a life that wasn't his own, but that suddenly seemed like the key to understanding his entire existence. And then she found it. Not one, but several. And in one of them, the most faded, the most hidden, there she was, Clara, her mother. Young, radiant, her eyes filled with a love Julia could hardly believe she was capable of. And beside her, and a kind gaze, A man with an easy smile. A man she barely knew, but whose blood ran in her veins. And then her eyes, already blurred with tears, darted to the signature in the corner of the photo. That signature she had seen on old documents, but never paid much attention to, until now. And there it was, the final proof, the confirmation that that note, that forgiveness, that love, wasn't just a sad story about two ordinary people. It was her story. The man she called her written father, by the hand of, and in that thunderous silence of the attic, with the weight of 40 years in her hands, a question echoed in Julia's soul: what to do with the forgiveness that arrived 40 years after the last goodbye? The answer would change everything. Sometimes the universe doesn't shout. It whispers. It whispers through an instinct that pulls us into a dusty shop, through a chill down our spine when touching an old fabric, through a call we hear not with our ears, but with our hearts. And in that sacred silence of the attic, Julia finally listened. She understood that the invisible threads that connect us to those we love are made of something stronger than distance, more resilient than time, and more powerful than death itself. They never break. They just wait patiently. They wait for the exact moment when we're ready to receive the truth. The pain of that brutal separation has never healed. Not really. But in that moment for Julia, that story was no longer a tragedy. It was a message. A letter sent across the decades. A forgiveness that transcended time and accident, that defied logic and mortality to finally accomplish its mission, to bring peace. Peace to the heart of a man who left with regret, peace to the heart of a woman who left without answers, and peace, finally, to the heart of a daughter who always carried the weight of a broken love that wasn't even hers. And she understood the most valuable lesson. She understood that true love, the love that is pure and genuine, is in no hurry. It doesn't obey clocks or calendars. It is patient. It waits. It waits silently, hidden in the folds of time. In some thrift store, inside the pocket of an old dress, just for the exact moment to be found. Because love, when it's real, is never lost. It just waits for its turn to be remembered. So what was your reaction when you found out you were her father? Tell us in the comments what you felt at the moment of the revelation. Did this story touch your heart? Leave a like if you believe that love transcends time. And subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next stories that prove that life sometimes writes the most beautiful and unexpected scripts. Until the next story, remember, the next whisper from the universe could be for you.